happening, and talk to us.
Well, we've had an action-packed weekend starting Thursday morning with Reverend Al Sharpton, who set the tone for the legislators. And then we moved on to workshops on faith-based initiatives with entities that are looking to do construction projects and build shopping malls. And we talked about African-American wealth. We had workshops on healthcare with Delegate Pulliam, who pulled in a group of people to talk about the health disparities in the state of Maryland. And we moved to housing devaluation. A lot of people are talking about foreclosures, but at the end of the day, many of our houses are underwater and devalued at this point. And the home equity was the beginning of African American wealth. It was the way that we were able to send our kids to college. It was the way that we started our own businesses, etc. And so that has gone. The properties have devalued. We're underwater, and that's a struggle. So the question has been, and all of the underlying theme here is opening the pipeline to economic, social, and political justice. How do we open that pipeline? How do we untie that knot to make certain that African Americans in the state of Maryland have economic parity, have an opportunity to live a viable quality of life?
Black Caucus weekend, we're having a fantastic time. You was on the panel. Everyone knows your name. So what is your passion for purpose for participating at this kind of venue?
Well, Senator Catherine Pugh, let me just say we have an outstanding chair of the Legislative Black Caucus, and it's always good to see someone who follows you do just such an excellent job. But this was about education, economic development, and how do we increase wealth in the African American community. And we talked a range of topics from housing and getting people to understand what it is to buy a house, but more importantly, how much house can you afford to buy and what you can do as a result of that equity that's in that house. Many people have started their businesses from having home ownership and equity in their homes, and we got to get young people to think along those same lines. But we also have to make the state understand that it has a responsibility to our historically black institutions to make sure that they're well funded. And at the same time, we also want to make sure that we're spreading the wealth across the board. This state happens to be 1/3 African American, and as a result of that, we ought to be sharing in the wealth of this state, and we're not at the levels that we are currently. So we need to make sure, and that's what this Legislative Black Caucus has as its priority, making sure that historically black colleges and universities are funded, that the wealth of the state is being spread among all of us, including, and I guess I'm really talking about being more inclusionary as it relates to the races that exist in this state. And we've got to continue to press that and push that forward in the state of Maryland.
Well, I like your conversation because it's very paramount, but it's interesting because nobody gives us nothing.
Oh, absolutely.
In the scheme of things.
No, absolutely.
And it seems like you've been championing just the whole piece of economic wherewithal. Mm-hmm. So what is 3 bullet points for the folks who on this Facebook looking at you right now? What can they do right now? 3 bullet points.
Well, first of all, engage with the Legislative Black Caucus. We have a website, so there's no secret about how you can stay in communication with us. Understand the opportunities that are available in the state for increasing wealth. Let us all make sure that we understand how important it is to educate our children. And it starts from home, school, and then on to college, so that we can be a part of this global economy. So, those are my 3 major issues here: education, home ownership, and building wealth in the African American.
Black Caucus weekend, you was on the panel today. What's your name, and what do you think people should walk away from this whole Black Caucus weekend?
April Ryan, White House correspondent for American Urban Radio Networks, also the Washington bureau chief. Been there for 15 years, 3 presidents so far. I think events like today are important because, people like to say the word empowerment, but there is a thing called empowerment, and it's real. I think what we talked about, people need to glean from that home ownership is very critical. It's critical economically for you to, if you want to be an entrepreneur, take that home and utilize it to be the foundation to move forward, move your family forward. Also, education. It's one of the biggest things to help Black America to become a part of the middle class, the great middle class that's so known around the world. I think it's about knowledge, understanding where we are as a people in the state of Maryland and beyond.
You know what? This has been such an exciting weekend for African American and our issues. Today we had a packed house for a town hall on the state of Black Marylanders. We talked about every issue from economic development, the education of our children, building wealth, health care, all of the issues that are impacting our people. Roland Martin from CNN and BET was strong and forceful, so knowledgeable about the issues here. And we had panelists from every walk of life, young people, professionals, elected officials, business leaders, all working together collectively to address these issues. These are the opportunities we need to come together and really find solutions to the challenges and the opportunities that are out there for African Americans.
Y'all heard it from Anthony. You have Anthony and Anthony. Y'all heard it from him first. We're making a difference. So what can someone do when they go back to their community after the event to really keep this vision and this thrust moving forward?
Well, you got to continue the dialogue. I think one of the things about today was people were equipped with information. Take that information, whether you are in trouble for foreclosures, whether you need something to purge from your record, if you want to buy a house, if you want to start a nonprofit, do it. We need you to step up to the plate right now. And there are all kinds of people around you who are willing to be part of your work. But one person makes a huge difference as long as they're willing to step up to the plate.
This young lady was on the panel. What's your name?
Chris Marsh.
She had a great conversation. People heard them 4 bullet points about the middle class, and they said, oh, they didn't understand. So why don't you think they didn't really process or understand what you were talking about?
I don't think that they didn't process or understand. I think when you try to take a group like the middle class or a definition like the middle class and take a word like the definition, a word like the middle class and try to define it, it makes it a little challenging and a little difficult. People have their own preconceived notions of what they think middle class is. Okay. So when I come in and tell you what I'm defining the middle class, it kind of doesn't gel with what they think. So it's like, wait a minute, there's a disconnect here. So if we had more time, I could have kind of talked through it and fleshed it out, and I'm sure I could have connected with them and made them understand.
So what was your real passion for really wanting to be on the discussion? What did you want people to learn from what you do and your value system?
Well, there's 2 things, because I was on the morning panel and I was on the afternoon panel. And one of the things that I did talk about in the morning panel about education is I really think we need to think differently about the way in which we identify students as gifted and talented.
We all got people who haunt us. For me, it's my great-great-aunts who are dorm mothers at Morgan State. And they're very clear when they visit me in the night to make sure that the NAACP stands up for our black colleagues.
Yes, sir.
Make sure that this country understands that they are a treasure to our nation.
Yes.
And that their continuation must be assured. So I want to compliment Chairman Brayboy. I want to compliment...
How you doing, Anthony? Roland Martin, what was the highlight of the Maryland Black Caucus weekend in your perspective?
Well, again, obviously moderating the town hall and moving people towards solutions in terms of how do we change things in our community. That's the most important thing. And you can talk about problems, you can talk about how things are, but how do you begin to change mindset and move folks to that direction?
So what is your personal dedication coming every year, reinvesting and moderating this type of forum? What do you really get out of it?
Well, first of all, for me, again, it is driving the conversation and being able to talk about accountability, because if you don't have that, that means you're just going to have the same conversation over and over and over again. So that's one of the things I always focus on.
The Black Caucus Foundation, Joel Hendricks.
So what is your passion, purpose for really putting this on every year?
You know, this is an important event, and a lot of folks don't know or recognize what the Legislative Black Caucus in Maryland do in terms of the bills they pass and some of the policies that they've initiated. So this annual weekend, number one, is our primary money raising event for the Black Caucus Foundation, which supports their efforts. Which also we go out in the community, we give out scholarships to the major HBCUs. We also let them know a lot of these members have instituted and implemented some groundbreaking legislation throughout the years. We share that with the African American community, as well as trying to empower our community with the information and with the knowledge. So we facilitate those discussions on a variety of levels. We have job fair going on, we have vendors, we have a gala tonight. So we kind of put it all together. We started off the weekend with Reverend Al Sharpton, and we ended it up with Roland Martin, and just tonight we celebrate. So it's that one event every year that we kind of bring it all together before we go to session in January.
So if someone wants to get involved, I want to help out, I want to make a difference through the Maryland Black Caucus, what do they need to do, and what do y'all need?
Yeah, you can go to MD Black Caucus Foundation. We have a website, and you can actually register your name. We'll keep you updated with some of the events we do throughout the year, as well as we'll keep you updated with some of the events that the members do. The Legislative Black Caucus, again, one of the strongest in the nation, actually, in terms of the laws and some of the policies that they actually institute year in and year out.
You have to remember, get that house, because that house is Bob Johnson, the founder of Black Entertainment Television, said April. He said this was the election around 2000. He said, Black people need to get a house. He said, because that's the way you leverage the company. And he said, once you do that, you have to go, and we have to learn to be a little bit conservative in our thinking when we buy the house, going back to that three times, which, you know, yeah, I would love to live. I would love to live like Roland Martin and Bishop.
Anybody anyway?
We may be called, but we're not all able. But you know, and it takes a lot to make something. We have to really be conservative in our thinking when we look at the house on the hill. It may have to be that little cabin on the hill for a moment to build up. And I think a lot of us, have a tendency, instead of putting into education, be right, and I'm guilty of it too. You like nice suits, you like nice clothes, you like nice this, that, and the other. But I think as people need to stop worrying about who's two heads as brand new legends or as brand new clothes.
I think we got to go back to the definition of this discussion about black wealth. The aspiration, I think, for our community, all the more for this generation, is not black wealth, it's black rich. The Kennedy family just celebrated this past year 50 years of their grandfather, Joe Kennedy's investment into the arms of the Nazi soldiers. The Kennedy family, ladies and gentlemen, live off of the interest of their grandfather's investment. That's why they've been able to give their lives to public service, because they don't have to work for an income. They're able to live off of interest. And I think the real issue of wealth
and Mitt Romney,
right?
He lives off of interest.
Absolutely. The sons of Mitt Romney are living off of $100 million living will, which means that I don't have to be dead. In the black community, somebody died, we fight over mama's earrings. Because we have not set up wealth. And I think that dealing with wealth creation is, what am I leaving for what's coming behind me? When you deal with God, God always deals with generational wealth. I'm the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. For us, our being rich is I went to the Essence Festival. We don't have anything at the end of it. And I think that training and that teaching has to happen. The only investment, 9 out of 10 people in the room, the only investment your church teaches you is the investment of tithing. You give 10% to the church, but they're not asking you to be accountable to the other 90. I think that the other 90 has got to be taught and instructed, because what the biblical principle is, I cannot tithe if I don't have a budget. So for me to have a budget helps me to understand where the 10% is and how do I get to the 90. So I think a re-education has to happen.
One day a change is gonna come when all the world will live as one. No need for lies, no, for the truth will be the light.
All right. Now, just for the people who don't know, you are Art Sherrod Jr. And just for the people that don't know, you play the saxophone. And yes, he did. He played the saxophone tonight.
Back it up.